Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Oswald Situk, and we're still exploring the shared access signature. But for today, we'll be talking about the User Delegation SAS. Azure Storage offers a combination of 4 storage services, which is managed by a storage account. These services include the queues, tables, files, and blobs. And with this variety of data storage options, it is crucial to ensure secure access to our data. Shared access signatures offer a compelling way to provide secure, delegated access to your storage resources. In the previous video, we explored the shared access signature and how the features allow you to grant controlled access to storage resources for a specific duration with tailored permissions to your needs. You can define read, write, delete, list, and other operations and just to ensure security while still maintaining temporary access. We discussed 2 types of shared access signatures, and we talked about the Account SAS and the Service SAS. The Account SAS that can be configured to give access for one or more storage services in the storage account, and the Service SAS helps you configure secure access for just one storage service at a time. The link to this video is in the description below. But today, we're going to learn more about another type of shared access signature that is called the User Delegation SAS. So here we are in the Azure portal, and we are in our storage account called SAS Demo 123. And in the overview blade here, you can see at first glance, quick overview of the configured parameters, like things like the subscription, the resource group, the account kind, and the performance tier. Basically, all of these things are just available to you at a glance. But we're going to go straight down to shared access signatures. And here is how you access the account level SAS. That's account level shared access signature. So if I click here, you have access to configure a SAS, an account level SAS, and you could do that. You could give access to one or more services. It could be just blob or blob and files and queues. Like just by selecting, you can configure what you want, and also you can you have granular access to manage the permissions. You have full control here, and you can set how long that permission, that access will be for. And here we also have the IP address that serves like a firewall. You can just input what IP addresses have access, are given express access to this SAS. And you can select your protocol, preferably https, because it is secure. And also you can sign on this using the SHA-256 algorithm. You can sign using the access keys, either key 1 or key 2. Any one of the pair would work. Now, what really is this access key? So in the last video, we spoke about the access key, and I said it gives you full unrestricted access to everything in the storage account. So it gives you access to your data plane and your control plane. Now let me give you a brief example of what this means. Now, if you have a laptop in your house and your friend wants to use a laptop and you've given him your password to your computer, he goes over to your house and your house is locked. Even if he has your password to your computer, he's not able to do anything because he doesn't have access to the physical computer. But if he had access to your house, can go into your house and get access to your computer, he can get to doing what he wants to do. Now, the access keys give you full unrestricted access in those 2 layers. I said the control layer is like your house that houses, like that keeps or secures your computer itself. And then your computer is like the data plane. So there's a control plane and there's a data plane. Data plane just has to do your data access control. Who has access to what data in your storage account. And then your control plane is just you being able to see the resources or other resources in the Azure tenant. Just being able to move around and see things in your storage account, maybe create containers. All of those are in the control plane. But when it has to do with you accessing your data, like write, delete, move, all of those are in the data plane, and access must be given to them separately. Now, you could give access to your storage account using your access keys, and if you're using access keys, you know it covers both the data plane and the control plane. So if we come here to containers now, we would see our containers. And if you click on these containers right here, you would see the authentication method is access key. So right now, the reason why we are able to see this, remember I said the access given on both planes, is because of our access key. We could switch and say we are using our Entra ID, Microsoft Entra ID, to authenticate and authorize our access to seeing this. Because we don't have the right permissions, we don't have access to see these things, and we can switch back just by clicking this button and we can see them again. If we come back here to configuration and click on configuration here, you can just set which one you want to be your default. By default, I think by default it uses the account keys access, so it's enabled. That's why you can use account keys to see and do anything to our data in the portal right now. But we could change this and say we just want to use Microsoft Entra authorization instead, and that means that this will be the primary and this will be this will take the back seat, and we can disable this altogether so that only people with the right access, the right permissions can do this. And how do you give permissions to people on Azure? Using the RBAC, Azure role-based access control rules. So these rules are what will give you permission to do certain things. But let's not go so far. Let's come back to our containers. We talked about our account-level SAS, and now I'm going to show you our service-level SAS. So service-level SAS basically is you configuring access to just one storage service. It could be your file shares, queues, tables, but I'm going to focus on containers here. You could come to maybe London, and you can see here we have shared access tokens. If I go back, I'll show you another way. You could just right click on this, or just here you can see generate SAS. It will give you the same, you can achieve the same thing doing that. I'm just going to come back here and click on shared access tokens. So if you click on shared access tokens, you will be given access to create a SAS. So here, this will only affect this container. It doesn't affect any other service, just this container right here. And you can also sign it with the access keys, as you can see. Remember, I showed you how you can switch from access keys to Microsoft Entra ID authorization and authentication. The same thing happens for our blobs, our containers. We can use our Microsoft Entra ID to sign this instead of our access keys. And that is the option we have here called User Delegation SAS. Now, when you create a SAS must be signed by a key. In the account level SAS and the service level SAS, we use the access key to sign this. But when we come to the user delegation key, the user delegation key is what is used to sign the SAS. Now, what is the user delegation key? The user delegation key is a key that's gotten from the credentials, your Microsoft Entra ID credentials for your specific security principle. In this case, this user that is creating the SAS right now. So the security principle, be it a user, a group, or a managed identity, would have the right and appropriate RBAC rules that gives it access to create a user delegation key. And for you to create a user delegation key is just a control plane action. So for you to do that, you need to have the access to create a user delegation key. And you could also do this in the blob itself. If I come here and maybe we come inside London container, and this blob we have here, we can come to generate SAS, and we could also use user delegation key. So it works for blob storage. It works for blob containers, blob storage, and data lake storage. So user delegation key works for both of them. And in user delegation key, you do not have access to use stored access policies. So you see here we have stored access policies, but if I come over to user delegation keys, that option is not available to us. Now, we are saying here that we do not have permissions to grant access. I told you that we need to have access on two fronts, on the control plane and on the data plane. So now we have access to get here. We could navigate the Azure portal and get to this point. So that basically says that we have the control plane access to come here. But do we have the data plane access, the data access to do anything on these blobs or this container as it were? So we have to go and assign a row to our user, which is this user account right now, to ensure that he has the possibility of doing this. And it's not every row that has the ability to generate a user delegation key. The user delegation key is going to be generated by the user account on Entra ID, and that user delegation key will be used to sign the SAS. It's not going to be signed with the access key, but we sign with this user delegation key. And what roles have the ability to generate this user delegation key? I'm going to come to this tab right here, and you can see here it says to request a user delegation key, you must assign to a security principal the Microsoft.storage account blob services generate user delegation key action. Now, what roles have this action? So these are the roles that have the action: the contributor role, the storage account contributor role, the storage blob data contributor role, the storage blob data owner role, storage blob data reader role, storage blob delegator role. So currently on my account, I have the contributor role. So this contributor role is already giving me access on the control plane, and I need to have something on the data plane that gives me access to manage these resources. So I'm going to just come here and show you these three rows right here in the portal. Let's go back to the portal. So here in the portal, I'm going to close this. Remember, the user delegation key action is on the storage account level, so you cannot assign it on the container level. It has to be on the storage account level. I'm just going to come back to the storage account level and come to IAM, access control IAM. So here, I'm going to just view my access so you can see the access I have. Let's give it a minute. So I have a contributor role and I have an owner role. So both of these roles here give me access to generate user delegation key, but I don't have access on the data plane. So let me show you what I mean. So if I come to this contributor role now, there are loads of actions right here. And if I just write user delegation key here, you would see so you can see I can generate user delegation key, I can revoke, I can generate a user delegation key. I can just see right from for a file service, for a blob service, you see the options here. So I'm going to come here and check the data actions in the data plane. This is a control plane, this is data plane. I don't have anything here. I can't do anything to those data objects. I can't do anything there. So I need a role that gives me access to the data itself. So what role would I take? I'm going to come here and show you the roles we have. So if I come here I thought I was going to focus on the specifics for the blob. So storage blob data. Okay, I'm going to come to storage blob data contributor role. So I'm going to view this role and what it can do. Here you see you can read the container, you can read the blobs, you can write, you can patch, you can generate user delegation key. So you see this has access. And then if you come to data plane, you see now this row can read, write, delete, and add blob content. You can even move blobs. So that's one. I'm going to come here and check for data reader role. So let's see what this does. So data reader role also can generate a user delegation key. You can list and get the blob itself. You can read it. On the data plane, all you can do is read. So if you assign this role to this is my account now, this is user account now, it means that whatever permissions you're going to create on the SAS, this is the limit. It can't do what it can, like it's not allowed to do. So you can only read. So I don't think this is what I'm going to be using in this case. Now I'm going to come to the user and the owner role, the storage blob data owner role. I'm going to click on here. And here you see loads of access. So you can see generate a user delegation key for blob service. That's done. Let's come to data actions. So you see this guy can do much more than the rest of them. And he has access to handle immutability. There's a permission that is called immutability blob. So you can, if you have this role, you can do that. So he has ownership, you can modify, you can read, write tags, and much more. So if I come here to actions, so let me show you what I mean. If I say rights protection, so if you, oh sorry, right is okay, right is okay. So right here you can see put blob container immutability policy. So if you have this role and you use it to generate a SAS, it means the user, the client that is using that SAS can create an immutability policy on that container or a container that he's accessing using that SAS. So I'm just going to assign this SAS, this row to my user. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to come back here, view, and then assignments, and then add assignment. So here I'll just look for the same row, storage blob data. Okay, data owner row. Next, I'll just add my user itself. I'll scroll down to Walt and select, and then move next to the conditions. I don't want to set any conditions. I'll just go ahead and assign this row to him. Now, I want you to note that when you generate a user delegation key, now we see that my user has access to be able to generate that key. But when you have that key, you must also have at the back of your mind that that user delegation key can only last for 7 days. So now, if you try to create a SAS using that user delegation key, it means that it cannot be anything more than 7 days. Your lifetime or life cycle of that user delegation key is 7 days, and that also affects your SAS itself. Your SAS cannot be valid for more than 7 days. It's going to be invalid in merely 7 days. So we're going to go back to our containers and see what I mean by this. So I'm back to containers. I'm going to come to London and shared access tokens. So if I come here, user delegation key, so it's saying I do not have the permissions, and this is because it takes some time for these rows to propagate. So I'm going to refresh it now. So let's do this again. So you see that is off, so that role has been given, so he has access to do that. So I'm going to come here and just click. You see, you can just add the permissions. Now if I use a reader role, I won't be able to use this create or write, but because I have the owner role, I can do everything plus immutable storage, so I can add that. And here we can set our time, and I said you cannot use it. You cannot use a user delegation key. The timeline cannot be more than 7 days. So let's say we have today is 6th of May. So I'm going to come here and say, let me just say let's say 14th of May and see what happens. So it says expiry date and time should be within 7 days of the current time. So that's just it. So when you set your start time for your SAS and your expiry time for your SAS to be valid, that is copied over to your user delegation key. So your user delegation key is going to be active just as long, the same time. So it has to be less than 7 days. I'll just come back here and say maybe if I just put it in 12, that's 6 days. And let's see what happens. You see, that works. And we can go ahead and configure our IP address, and we can also generate our HTTPS. And remember, for shared access signatures are not audited. You cannot track the number of shared access signatures that you generate automatically on the portal on Azure. You have to do that manually. So I'm going to just hit here. It means that we're generating a SAS that gives us access to this container, and we can do everything basically for this timeline for the next 6 days, and then we're just going to hit on generate SAS token. So here we have our blob SAS URL. So this is our SAS blob SAS token and blob SAS URL. So our blob SAS URL is a combination of our storage resource URI plus our SAS token. So I'm going to break this down in a bit. Just give me a minute. So I'm going to bring this, copy this. I have my notepad. I'm going to just paste it in this notepad. It's right here in this notepad. I think it's too bold. Let me zoom out a little. Okay, that should stay that way. So I've copied it. I'll use this key to attach this container to our storage explorer. So let's do that together. So here in our storage account, we're going to attach that SAS URI. So we're going to come here and click on this, and then we want to attach a container. So I'm going to click on this, and then using shared access signature URL. So I'll click on next and paste the URL here. You see, it picks the name. The display name is just for you to identify what container you're talking about. You can name it as something else. Let me say, I will say London New. Assuming, just say next, then it's warning in case you have a malicious file in that container. And you see the permissions are listed right here. They read, add, create, write, delete, list, set immutability policy. So you can just go ahead and connect. Successful. It's going to pop up somewhere here. Okay, so you see, amongst blob containers, I now have a container called London New, and it has those items inside. So this is, we have access using our User Delegation SAS. So I'm going to just show you something now. In this SAS URI, you can see that we have our delimiter here, and then we also have the rows, the configure permissions. I'm going to just hit enter and just bring them down. So you can see this is the sign permission. So you can see read, add, create, write, delete, list, immutable access, immutability policy. Then after the and, there's going to be a new one. Just the parameters. This is the start time for my SAS token, and then come here. This is the expiry time for my SAS token, and the next one here is the sign key object ID. So this is what object ID from Entra, and then if we come here, this is the sign key tenant ID. So this is the tenant ID, and if we go forward now, the next one here is sign key. Okay, the next one here is sign key time. So this time is copied from this other one. I told you it's copied from this other one, so it's going to be exact. So once your SAS URI expires, the user delegation key expires too. Well, the maximum you can go is 7 days. So you can see this is the expiry time, and then the next one here, you can see the sign key service. So you can see we only block for now. The next one is the sign key version. Okay, the next one is the sign protocol, https. So let's move on forward. Then this is the sign version. So this is sign version here. Let's move forward again. This is the sign resources. This is a container actually. So let's move on. This is the signature. So this is hashed using the SHA-256 with all of these parameters. So if you change anything here, this will not work. If you change even one item here, this will not work. And it's different from the regular SAS that you don't get to see all of these parameters here. So if you bring in another SAS now, let's just quickly generate a SAS 4. I'm going to just paste this one back here so we don't lose it. Let's quickly generate a SAS, a regular SAS. So I'm going to come back here and say we're going to come to an account level SAS, and I'm not going to check any other thing. Let's just say generate token, and so we're going to copy this and bring it to our clipboard. This time around we can just paste it right here, and so here you can see this is the storage account resource URI followed by the permissions. So you see read, add, create, the same thing. You see the start time is there, and then we have the expiry time, and then we have just in between the and is where the next one is. So protocol, and then the next one is sign version, and the next one is our sign resource. Okay, then the next one we go for is the signature itself. So you see it doesn't have as much as this other one. So authorization for user delegation SAS is done with Entra ID credentials for the specific security principle. In this case, my user that created the SAS. So when you give this access to someone, a client, how then do you revoke access? How do you know that you can recall this in case you have a breach or something happens to your SAS URI? How do you ensure that you can revoke access for a user delegation key? If you go back there, you can't find it anymore, even though that we have it saved somewhere else. So you don't have it anymore. So how do you fix this? You have two options. You can go ahead and remove that row, that RBAC row that you assign to that user, or you can just revoke the user delegation key using a post request. So I'm going to show you both options now. So we're going to come here. I'm going to just show you. If you come to the storage account, let's come right here and click on our storage account, SAS demo 123, and I am, and you can see role assignments. Then we can come down here, and this is the row that allows you to handle the data. You can just say, okay, I'm removing this row. Once you remove this row, once you delete this row, it will invalidate that SAS. You could also revoke the user delegation key itself. So if you come here and delete this, it might take some time because the user delegation key and the rows, the RBAC rows are cached in Azure storage. It might take some time for that to happen in your storage explorer. So right now I can still go in and access things right here. I can even open a file here. Okay, this is asking me to update this. Not now. And just go in and view a file or something, or delete a file. I still have access to just say delete this, and yes. So it's queued, and then give it some time. That's done. It's deleted. It's taken that out of the list of items we have. So let's come back here. I'm going to remove this access right here, but if I do this, I'm going to just come back and show you how to do the same thing using revoking the user delegation key. So I'm going to just delete this access now. So that's done. It takes about 10 minutes for this to propagate properly, the tenant. So I'm going to refresh. Okay, so if we come to role assignments again, we scroll down, we see that user Walt doesn't have that permission anymore. And let's go back to our shared access signature and say, let's try to refresh this now. It's saying this request is not authorized to perform this operation using this permission because we've revoked the access. So the person cannot do anything anymore. Access has been broken. But I'm going to just go and I'll detach this right now. And then we're going to create another user delegation SAS. I'm going to show you how we can revoke the key itself. So let's come back to our portal. So here in the portal, I'm going to assign that role again to Walt. That's our user. So I'll just come here and say storage blob data owner. Select the role, come to members, give it to Walt, assign. I prefer not to use any conditions, and then assign this role to this user. Again, I'm going to just refresh. We're going to go to our containers, and let's use Paris this time. I'll just say, okay, shared access tokens and user delegation key. So it has not propagated yet. So I'm going to refresh again. So let's check it again. Okay, so that has propagated. In this case, I just want to leave the read permission and list. That's all. I will not bother about this and just generate a SAS. So here we have a user delegation SAS again. I'm going to copy this and attach this. So blob container, use SAS, next, paste the name, next, and connect. So you see we have our access to read the data here. Now, I'm going to show you another way to revoke this. So I'm going to drop this link in the description so you can check it out. I do not want to use a command line interface. I'll just use this post request to revoke access to the user delegation key. So I'm going to click on try it first of all, and then I'll ask to sign in. So here I'm signed in as Walt, then continue with this account. So here I'll be asked the storage account name, which is the SAS demo 123. I'll be asked the resource group, and that is the Oswald resource group. Subscription is already imputed by default, and then everything is okay. I just click on run. If I have a 200 response, that means it has revoked that access or any access to any user delegation key right now. So I'll just click on this now. So you see, response code is 200. Immediately, that has been revoked. Let's confirm this. We go back to our storage account and let's try to refresh this. Okay, so server failed to authenticate. So you see, we've been able to revoke access to that. We've come to the end of this, and if you stuck around to this point, I would say hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you get notified when I drop new content here. Thank you. See you in the next video.